of the United States of America,
to the
which it
republic,
stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under
under God, indivisible,
and justice for
with
all.
liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, liberty part. Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Glenn's was your month for claims.
Yes, and I reviewed the claims and saw no discrepancies.
Any other board members have anything they'd like to discuss and or pull from the consent? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion to pass it as a whole.
I'd like to ask a question. I noticed that the ERAF money, we didn't get an increment of it.
It's coming, it actually showed up in early June, early September.
Oh, so we do have it.
Yeah, we do have it in hand. It's in September.
I mean, given what's going on in the state's budget, I was wondering if we were going to lose it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I will say that there's been some movement to recalculate it. And
Yeah.
so we're hoping, and I did send in some, I sent a letter, to vote against that. So anyway.
But I think based on the deficit, they're probably going to grab it. Okay, so that's been answered to your satisfaction. Anyone else have any questions? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a
Move to
motion.
accept the consent calendar.
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay. Denise, please.
Director Feldman,
Yes.
Director Larimer,
Yes.
Vice President Reynolds,
Yes.
President Michelson.
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, meetings attended, director comments. Anyone have anything to add, share? This is an off month for Bosca because we meet every other month. Nothing new there. Anyone else? Moving into general business. Mary, please, 6A.
Okay, so 6A is basically, it's the same as what you saw last month. Basically what you're seeing is the administrative record for our, as we look, going out to a potential rate increase. We did send the Prop 218 notice of for a public hearing to occur on October 13th. And we put in up to 5% for effective January 1st, 2021, and up to 5% for effective January 1st, 2022. Let me share a screen just for a second. Basically what you're seeing in this document is our fiscal year 2021 operations budget. We have a draft fiscal year 2021-22 operations budget as well, because we're looking at a 2-year rate increase. Fiscal year 2021 to 30 capital improvement program that we approved back in July. And we have the financial plan and rate update study that was put together by Raftellus Financial Consultants. All of these are to comply with Prop 218 requirements and the appellate court decision, Capistrano Taxpayers Inc. versus the City of San Juan Capistrano back in 2015. So we just go over quickly what we did with our planning. If we would have no rate increases, we would see our reserve balances go down significantly over the next few years. So what we ended up with, as we looked at a couple different scenarios, and decided to move forward with the Prop 218 notice. The board decided to move with option 2, which is a 5%, up to a 5% annual increase, as I mentioned, with assuming that there could be some debt proceeds in fiscal year 2022. So with that, in terms of our modeling and our budgets, this is what our reserve balance would look like over the years, with 5% rate increases. In addition, we looked at our budgets, and we had our we've approved the 2021 budget. We have a draft budget for 2022. The 2021 budget assumed kind of a significant decrease in our water sales due to loss of an ag customer and COVID issues, with recovery in 2022. I will say, right now, the first couple months of the new fiscal year, we have seen water sales being up, primarily due to the weather and irrigation. Actually, our residential use has pretty much held steady, but we had a decrease in some of the visitor serving and commercial, and some with the ag, but we've had some increases with our irrigation and raw water customers, or Skylon. So, but we do have the situation where we have our operating costs higher for assuming that we're really looking at dentists, that we're not able to use Denniston much in these in the first 6 months of this year, due to the lack of rainfall in the spring. In terms of our CIP, this is an insert we put in with our Prop 218 notice, where our game plan is right now we're for the next 10 years, we have a 45 million CIP program. We're looking at for capital improvements, we spent 36 million in the last 10 years. So, this is an overview of we are investing in our infrastructure at a fairly quick rate. I will say we have a lot of projects in the works, including our Nunes treatment plant rehabilitation, and we're putting in a sub basin and filter rehab, and doing a number of replacements that will cost the district about 7 million coming into the into next year. We also are working on our tank is our tank plan, and also water supply development as well out at Denniston. So I guess first of all, does anybody have any questions, or would you like me to go through anything that's in the section A of our document?
Mary, nothing has changed
No.
since last we met. Is that correct? What we see is what we saw last time, including the assumptions and the information that you presented about water use, etc. There's been no variation of any dramatic manner from anything that we've based this final version on at this point, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I mean, so that's fine.
We wanted to present this because as we look forward to our public hearing on October 13th, we want the public to have access to this information.
Sure.
So
Anyone else have questions?
No,
This was more informational, and then Bob, and thanks for touching on that. Nothing has changed, so no surprises here. I
Right.
did receive my notice. Are we, someone started a thread on Nextdoor. It went nowhere about our rate increase. Are you hearing anything or letters coming in or?
we've had one letter come in.
Okay,
We had another one come in today.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
okay. Good. Thank you. And do you want to go over the timeline again, or is everyone comfortable with the timeline?
Yeah, just in terms of the, of what's in the board packet, we are, we're on track. We're going to be doing additional customer outreach. We did put out a newsletter on the 1st of September. We'll do another one in mid-September. And we're also going to be publishing the 218 notice in the review coming up. So again, all leading up to the October 13th meeting.
Okay. Thank you. So that takes us to the valve exercising equipment, I believe.
Okay, so I'm going to
James,
turn
is
this
that
up
you?
to James.
Good evening, board members. There's several parts to this, so bear with me as I explain how we put this together. I just want to offer up that I purchased a very similar truck when I was at Marina Coast Water District, and I've taken all the lessons learned there and applied them to this one. So the first part is we need the chassis. We went to bid for the chassis. Enterprises to build the truck and the equipment on a flatbed together, and that's 75,361. So the background is we currently have a valve exercising trailer. We purchased it in 2007. It served its use. It doesn't have great safety features or torque control, but it has served the purpose of the district. It is beyond the equipment service life. So valve exercising, as many as you may realize, is a very important part of a preventive maintenance program and emergency preparedness. The district currently has 1,300 mainline valves that need to be exercised. We don't have good tracking of our exercising, and it's usually maintenance or repair related. We're getting about 200 a year with the trailer. The trailer has also got a vacuum unit, which will come with this new piece of equipment. Valve exercising also, as we experience some marinas, it really gets the operators engaged in where the valves are, making sure the valve cans are clean and ready to go, which valves work or not, which And the third part is the installation with Selzy. The reason we want to use Selzy is due to their reputation, and the other truck manufacturers, the truck builders, were not willing to do some custom work that we wanted. They didn't want to do a custom arrangement of the equipment. They just wanted to basically place it in a standard layout. Several shops said they only do standard layouts. There's a custom 173-gallon stainless steel water tank, and that's for the wash down for cleaning parts and washing out the cans. And also continuous welds on the bed rather than stitch welding, and soldered wiring rather than crimped wires. So that's basically, we went to bid and we didn't get any responses from other truck shops. We'd like to use Selzy. I've worked with them in the past. They put out an excellent product, and basically they do the best work. So if you have any questions, I'm available. I know I kind of went quick, but I don't want to bore you with valve exercising equipment. I'm very passionate about this being an important part of the district's preventive maintenance, and I could talk all night about it.
When do we get to see it?
The truck's going to be a while. It's probably going to be 8 months out before it's all put together. The chassis is going to probably take 4 months.
You have
be
to
ordered.
buy it first, Chris.
Yeah, you know,
And
I
then
just,
again,
yeah, but
then that's a
with
good reminder. We get fleet pricing on the chassis.
with multiple vendors, I'm anticipating quite a timeline. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
I thought I'd seen everything when I saw a monster truck, but the best is yet to come, because this thing is gonna be really something. And I hope monster truck and the valve exercising truck come together on the Coles, because they'll make quite a pair. I think they're gonna love each other. So that's all I can say. I never thought I'd see anything quite as exciting as this thing after monster truck, but I was
Do you
wrong.
want to put that in the form of a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we buy, it's a long motion. We approve the procurement of the valve exercising equipment and truck, including: 1, a purchase of a Ford F-550 chassis; 2, purchase of EH-Wax valve exercising equipment; 3, installation of a customized flatbed with the EH-Wax equipment installed on the chassis. There you have it.
Thank you for that.
It's 250.
Now, the monster truck was
More.
expensive.
Was it?
Close
Okay,
to
I don't
300.
remember, but it was up there, yeah. I thought it was about the same. Okay, thanks.
Director Feldman, I was just thinking maybe we could call it Baby Godzilla when it comes.
Well, something, yeah, maybe Baby Godzilla would be fine. I'll be fine. I love it.
Thank you.
Unbelievable.
So James, are you taking the next one also? The,
I am. Thank you. Let me
Okay,
just scroll
thanks.
through the agenda here. Okay, so this is for approval of procurement for an emergency portable diesel pump for the Pilarcitos Dam. So as many of you may know, we went through some pretty rough PSPS PG&E outages last year while we had the Pilarcitos pipeline going in. It was a pretty tense situation. So we're much more comfortable about getting water from Pilarcitos, but it has been a dry year, and we've gotten essentially a very limited allotment of Pilarcitos water because it's not going over the spillway. And we talked to the SFPUC staff about this situation, and they threw out, just put a generator at Crystal Springs. So we looked into that. A generator at Crystal Springs, just to start one pump, would be a megawatt generator. It would be a very expensive design and engineering, and literally just refueling would be quite a challenge. So the SFPUC was willing to put in a second siphon, so that we now have 2 siphons at the Pilarcitos Dam, which siphon water up over the spillway. But they can only guarantee us right now 1,000 gallons a minute. So in the event of an emergency or a PSPS event or a malfunction or failure of the equipment at Crystal Springs, we need to be able to deliver raw water and upwards of 1,000 gallons a minute. And this might even be applied when there is no water available and we can just pump over the dam without the siphons. So we did a lot of research. Darren and I had lots of talks with SFPUC staff. I avoided the 80-person committee. I worked with the engineering staff, and they have blessed this project, which I'm thrilled about. And the procurement on this is Omnia Partners, much like Sourcewell when we bought the generators for the Denniston project. It's already been through a JPIA, gone through and vetted for competitive pricing. And we would like to purchase this pump for the amount of $85,875. That includes suction hosing, discharge hosing, various fittings, containment, modifications to the trailer so that we can evenly jack it up on the slope of the dam face. We're thrilled the SFPUC staff is willing to let us do this in a full-blown emergency. I think it's a great step towards resiliency and much cheaper than a generator at Crystal Springs. Just storing diesel out there makes me a little nervous, and I think that's why it was never put in. It's right in the watershed. It's close to the water. Lots of ramifications there. So if you have any questions about this pump, the lead time is about 8 to 12 weeks. I can add more if you guys would like.
Jim, yes,
I have a question.
please.
So, have you talked to the electricity provider about how they've been, PG&E, how they've been upgrading their grid and whether or not they expect to be turning this off in the future? I was informed lately that one of the things that they're doing is trying to segment the grid so that they can turn off fewer customers. So in the past, they've turned off people who are not at risk because to turn off the power for people who were at risk, they had to turn off people who were not at risk. And of course, that cost them at the bottom line because they weren't selling electricity. So what they've been doing is trying to beef up their grid structure by putting in more switches so that they can turn off smaller portions of it. So have you had any conversation with them about what our risk is in the future?
Yes, we've talked to our customer service rep with PG&E. They are making modifications. There's no guarantees. Granted, these power lines go basically over the Cahill Ridge to feed that side of Half Moon Bay. I don't see there being any guarantees of them not turning off that circuit. There was discussion with staff that perhaps they did overreact at just an abundance of safety last year. I don't see fire season or PSPS is going away anytime soon. I see them getting worse. And I also want to remind everyone that this is also if we have a major catastrophic failure of the Crystal Springs pump station. We could have a whole host of electrical or mechanical problems there. And I think is a solid piece of our resiliency plan that we're trying to develop here at the district.
James, correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't this also mean that if the pipeline, if anything happened at the Crystal Springs pump station or up until the connection in the canyon, basically any of that pipeline would now be, how would you say, supplemented or worked around? So it gives us more resiliency than if we just bought a generator, because that depends on the pipeline and the pump station being intact. So this really augments an alternative. And frankly, I think that for the price this is, that this is less money than just the transfer switch alone would have cost. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. And Glenn, you made good points. This really does cover us if all the way from, really the Crystal Springs water where it enters the canyon, at very high pressure going into the valve. And at the pump station, we'd see an exceedance of 300 PSI. This is pretty critical infrastructure that was built very strong, but yes, we could bypass Crystal Springs, Cahill, all of that altogether. Yeah. And this is a short-term duration. I had to reassure the PUC this wouldn't be a stopgap, full-blown emergency where we would do this.
Yeah, no, which is fair. Yep. So I'll make a motion. Is there any other discussion, or can I make a motion?
No, thank you. Please,
All right.
please do.
I'll make a motion that we approve the procurement of an emergency portable diesel pump generator for Pillar Cetos Dam not to exceed the amount of $85,875.
Yeah, and I will second that. Thank you. Roll call vote, please, Denise?
Director Feldman,
Yes.
Director Larimer,
Yes.
Vice President Reynolds,
Yes.
President Michelson.
Yes. Thank you very much. And yeah, Glenn, you're right. The price is amazing relative to what we're spending for generators. So good job. Thank you, James. So professional services agreement with Balance. Who's going to take that?
I'm going to do that.
Okay.
So we have been working with Balance Hydrologics since our water year 2011 in collecting, gauging data for Denniston and San Vicente. So we have a really great set. We have a great set of data. We want to continue getting that data as we are moving forward with all of our efforts with San Vicente and Denniston. Our consultants are using this data. It is a worthwhile project to continue to keep the continuity. So Balance has come back with a proposal for our water year 2021 in the amount of $98,162. It's competitive with what they had they spec'd out in their 2020 year, which of 96,933. So does anybody have any questions?
Not seeing any. We could go to a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we accept the professional services with Balance Hydraulics for Denniston, San Vicente, stream gauging, groundwater monitoring, and data analysis, for estimated time and materials cost of $98,162.
I'll second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? If not, we can have a vote, please, Denise.
Director Feldman,
Yes.
Director Larimer,
Yes.
Vice President Reynolds,
Yes.
President Michelson.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Hey, can I ask a quick question of Pat on this one? So they tell us it's time and materials cost of $98,162. So if that comes in, it's a time and materials contract. So if it comes in $1,000 over that, do we have to reauthorize it, or is it just a change order? Because it was just a time and materials, it's no problem?
Yeah, at this point, what you've authorized is an estimated cost of, is the way the recommendation is worded. So if it's within a reasonable amount of that, we're okay.
Okay, I was just curious because usually it's a not to exceed, and this says it's a time and materials estimate. So I'm kind of like, okay, what's the upper limit?
Good
Yeah,
question.
I think that's one of reasonableness with your general manager.
Okay.
Thank you. And we do have a long history with Balance.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not worried about it. I was just
the verbiage is a little different. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's not your standard not to exceed.
Okay. Moving on to general manager's report.
No, we have one more.
Yeah. Maybe that was a Freudian slip. Patrick, what are you doing to us?
Yeah, so Mary, I'll just start with this one. So we're bringing forward to you a proposed rate increase. In 2017. The board approved a 3-year rate schedule, and we kind of break down our services to general services, which is pretty much everything. Then litigation services are a little higher rate, and then employee benefits is at a higher rate. I'm as your general counsel, all of my rate is at the general services rate, regardless of which matter I work on. The 3-year rate schedule that the board adopted in 2017 actually expired in July of 2017. You'll see from the date of this memo, I plan to present this to you as part of your budget. I usually bring this to the board in March or April. Because of COVID and everything that was going on with the district, decided not to bring this forward to the board and determined there's no great time to bring a rate increase to the board. But in coordination with your general manager, we put it on the agenda for this one. So what we're proposing is the same structure of rates, just with new rates for year 1, year 2, and year 3. And what we would propose is that the effective date would be January 1st of 2021 for year 1. I'm happy to answer any questions. I can give you more background. Just as a reminder, Hanson Bridget provides pretty much all of the legal services to the district, except for things that are covered by insurance. You have special water rights attorneys that deal with water rights stuff. And that firm has been with the district for a long time, goes back to, I think, the 70s with Ray McDevitt, brought them in. And then for specialized legal services, when it makes sense to hire somebody else, we support the district in doing that. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I got a question.
In your memorandum, Hanson Bridget, the attachment, I guess, it notes rates above a discount from our standard rates. Year 1 rates would be effective July 1, 2020. It's still in the letter that's in the exhibit here.
Yeah, correct. I didn't update the memo, but the proposal would be to have them become effective in January of 2021 for year 1.
So your proposal supersedes the memo.
Yep.
Correct.
So you synced it up with our
Patrick,
rate increase. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Patrick, I have a question. How I know your services are excellent. How do your rates compare to other water district legal counsel?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that we've been trying as a firm and me individually as a general counsel for a number of agencies is to try to bring them closer together. And so this exact rate proposal was actually adopted by, so I'm general counsel of the North Coast County Water District, Stinson Beach County Water District, as well as Alameda County Water District. Alameda County Water District is very big. Their rate structure, they have different tiers as well, but it's a different rate structure. And in fact, the rates for general services is higher. North Coast County Water District adopted the same rate proposal, actually back in March. And then through discussions because of COVID, we reached an agreement that we wouldn't implement it until January 1st, 2021. And Stinson Beach adopted this rate schedule as well to become effective January 1st, 2021. And then what we're trying to do as a firm is have all of our rates for general counsel services for similar clients be similar, because there's a wide disparity between all of them. And in fact, it's just a matter of, it's probably me, but the clients that I served as general counsel for tended to have the lowest rates among all of these clients within the firm. So I'm trying to get them so that they're more equal.
And so what I'm hearing is that similar size districts, you're charging this assumably lower rate, and larger districts a higher. This seems fair to us because we're smaller. And how does it compare to the competition?
We're higher than the competition, in all honesty. And it depends on how you define competition. So a lot of the firms that are our competition are firms that represent school districts, firms that represent cities. And you'll find that the cities and school districts their market tends to be a lower rate. The water district rates tends to be a little bit higher, as well as some of the sanitary districts. But in all honesty, when we go out and compete, we are at the higher end of our rates. And again, it also depends on if it's for special counsel services, then it can be at significantly higher rates. So when we factor that in a little bit in these different categories, and actually for some of the other categories like litigation and employee benefits, these rates would be lower than some of the competition.
So is your, do you do work other than water districts?
So it's very rare for me personally to do work for non-public entities. But we have a government section that really we specialize in, and for many, many years, it was providing general counsel services. That has expanded significantly. We provide a lot more special counsel services to other public agencies. And some of those rates tend to be a little bit higher than our general counsel rates. But those of us in the government section who do work for private clients, we have a different rate structure for that.
Yeah,
and so,
no,
go ahead.
I was just referring to what I think I was getting at was you said you're more expensive, but it sounded like you're specializing in just water districts, and I didn't want to be putting words into your mouth. Is that, did I get that right?
Well, that's true. And that's not just me. That's the other attorneys who provide general counsel services. They might not specialize in water districts. It just happens to be that that's my practice. All of the work I do with is mainly for water districts, but we have those who represent transit districts, and a bulk of
But
their
we
work
hire
is
you.
representing
We
transit
like you.
districts. Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I would make a motion that we approve the proposed increase to Hanson and Bridget billing rates using the attached memo to start January 1st, 2021.
Can I ask a question before we second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Employee benefits rate, is that added on to the general services or litigation services rates?
So the employee benefits rate, so the current rate, we'll just go with the current rate and then the proposed rate. The current rate is $450 for a partner, $420 for senior counsel, $385 for associates. So when we have employee benefits specialists do work for the district in that, that's what their rate is. So it's not on top of anything, that's their rate. Me as your general counsel, and I tend to get involved and work with all of our specialists because I add value as knowing the background of the history of the district. My rate, no matter what I work on, currently is at $350.
Okay, so it's not that this benefit is like the overhead price on top of your hourly rate, like one's direct and one's indirect. It's not that.
No, it's just when an employee benefits lawyer partner works on a Coastside counter water district matter, it's $450.
So an
That's the
employee
rate.
is another attorney or legal specialist who works in your office. So it's actually the work of another human being.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Correct.
Okay, so we have a motion that I will second it. Do we have any more discussion? If not, we'll go to a vote. Yeah, Denise, please.
Director Feldman,
Yes.
Director Larimer,
Yes.
Vice President Reynolds,
Yes.
President Michelson.
Yes, thank you.
And just if I could just add one more thing before we move on, I just want to say thank you.
Better.
No, I know. And it just, it really gives me great pleasure to serve as your general counsel. Coastside has always been a special client of mine because I grew up there. And so to be able to serve as general counsel for a water district that serves the house that I grew up in just is super meaningful. So I say that periodically, but you know that, but I just wanted to repeat that.
No, I feel the same way serving a community in which I grew up. It is a special feeling. Yeah, so I agree. Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Mary, how's it been going with the city?
Okay. So as you probably know, the city of Half Moon Bay has been working on their update for their land use plan over the last many years, frankly. The last time they updated the plan was in 1993. And I know that even I was involved in answering questions along with Dave, maybe, 2-3 years ago with the city. Effort kind of slowed down, and then this summer it really picked up again. The city is very anxious to get this land use plan finalized and voted upon by city council. They're pushing for a September 29th date. We actually got notified of the public works chapter, which is all of, really a large part about the public works section is about water. along with other, sewer and other things, but it is, there is quite a bit on water and CCWD. So this chapter was released actually right before the board meeting last in August, and I'll say Kathleen and I have been spending literally most of our time over the past few weeks pulling together comments, working with Pat, and also working with Bosca Council as well. So it is something that our focus is really, to make sure that what's represented in this chapter is accurate in terms of, for CCWD. It's, also, we wanted to, make sure that, there is this differentiation of, our autonomy as a water district. We're a separate entity than the city. So, there are pieces of, there were some things that the city really wanted us to do. And, it's a question of whether or not it makes, it makes sense. And also understanding that we are autonomous and we're responsible for the infrastructure and for the health and safety of our, of our ratepayers in our community. So the other issue we want, there was various language between water supply versus connections. So you want to make sure that there was, there's some differentiation there. I mean, we don't have that many connections, but we have, we felt comfortable with our water supply. The city, they actually came up with, they did their own modeling and calculations of water supply. And as you know, with our urban water management plan, we actually, we compute what we think is our supply. We felt, and we have felt comfortable that, our last urban water management plan went out to, 2040. Now we're working to go out to 2045. All the models say that we have supply. The city actually did with their modeling, they used some very conservative numbers, and not necessarily, having some of the impacts of the conservation mandates. But, basically they're saying through their, through their 2040 horizon, we're okay, but with maximum theoretical build, which is way out there, they say way beyond, they're expressing some concerns, but anyway, our position has been, we have supply out through our, our planning horizon. And so anyway, we didn't comment on their calculations, but, but we did make some footnotes. In terms of accuracy and things that, there's some, the language surrounding our agreement with SFPUC. We actually got help from, again, our, Bosca Council, that are part of Hanson Bridget, by the way, but also with, Patrick, but of cleaning up the language to talk about our, what, our agreement is, what, and that we have a, I think there was some confusion over our supply assurance. Excuse my lights are going off here. So anyway, so if we have a perpetual supply assurance, that outlives, our agreement. So anyway, so it's been a lot of work, and the city has been great with working with us. We met with the city 3 times, and even as of Wednesday of last week, they've, pretty much incorporated a lot of our comments into their documents. So I will say they are meeting right now. They're having a public hearing right now. So, and I know Kathleen is listening into that. But it is something where the city has agreed, if we, have other comments and things, to work with us as they, over the next couple of weeks as well, if we have any, additional points.
Thank you. And I just want to say, I've been working closely with Mary on this, and I really want to thank Mary, Patrick, and Kathleen for really looking out for the district, because it didn't necessarily start off so well. They were, meddling would be a polite way of putting it in the business of Coastside County Water District. And we did push back, and I think we prevailed. I think it's back to where it should be now. So I'd like to thank the team for their input. And any other directors have comments? Top right, I'll start with Bob.
Jim, you go first.
Okay, Mary, you referred to this as the land use plan. Is that synonymous with the local coastal plan?
It's maybe Patrick is better at answering this question.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do that. It is not synonymous. The land use plan is a part of the local coastal program.
Subset.
And the local coastal program is something that ultimately need to go to the Coastal Commission for certification. So this is one part of that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I noticed that I did read part of their documents, and I noticed in the preamble to it, or the introduction, that they cite the restriction on our water sales that is imposed on us with the Okanagan pipeline. And of course, that has created a problem for people who need to buy a non-priority water because we have none to sell. And yet we have excess capacity that we could sell. Has there been any attempt to go back to the Coastal Commission and say, could you please reevaluate this? We've, since the years that restriction was put on us, we've done a lot to improve our system. Things have changed. The circumstances are different now, and maybe that restriction doesn't make as much sense today as it did years ago.
Well, I will say with the city, they are, in their planning, they are feeling that there are enough non-priority connections out there for what they're projecting from that perspective. Their push is really, they would like to see more priority connections. They are pushing, one of the things that they've brought into their land use plan is they're pushing for, they're for affordable housing. And we, that had been an issue with us with their previous plans in terms of the use of connections. So they are including affordable housing as a local priority. And with that, they've also introduced this they call it a workforce overlay housing, which, so, they're trying to make some accommodation to be able to use our priority connections or, for affordable housing.
So that just basically underscores the point that what they really are not caring about is the fact that we don't have control of the majority of non-priority water services that are not in service. We can't sell them. We're limited to sell water at $16,000 a connection. And yet we have excess capacity that's just sitting there. And what this has done is created elevated a market for private people. And it means that anyone who needs to build a house for a teacher or for somebody who's working in middle management, here, we're adding a significant amount of money to the price of that house simply by restricting this market through regulation. And apparently the city doesn't care about that, because if they did, if they cared about what people are paying, they would do something to change this, because this is entirely a regulatory fee. It has no basis in reality other than the fact that somebody decided to put a limit on how many services we could sell. And what that's done is created about $100,000 difference in the cost of water. And quite frankly, I find that outrageous.
Okay, thank you. Bob, did you have something you want to add?
Just a comment. When I originally read an article in the Half May Review regarding this update, I grew concerned because it was apparent that there was lack of understanding in terms of what our approach to supply was, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I asked Mary, are you able to get them on the straight and narrow, at least to get our point made? All I want to say is it sounds like, as Chris, as you said, that you, Kathleen, Patrick, and Chris have worked this pretty hard to make sure they were being straight up in keeping our interests at heart. It sounds like you've done the best you could under the circumstances, and I appreciate that because I was quite concerned. I had some heartburn when I thought about that, but I think you've represented us adequately and as fairly as you could within the parameters you have to make them do the things that should be done, you know, for us. So I appreciate that because it was obviously, there was a lot of understanding of some of the things that were being presented. Thank you.
No, thank you for acknowledging that. And that's a very fair characterization of what we achieved. And I think we did the best we can considering. We could always wish for more. And Jim, I would agree. We could always hope for more, but this, I think we did a good job. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. James, you can come back at us with what you've been doing the past month.
Certainly. I have exciting news. With all the fire and the lightning and all the disaster, we simply asked the PUC if they'd do a fire break around Cahill and Crystal Springs, and boy, they did a great job. So my hat goes off to Darren for coordinating with those staff. So we've established significant fire breaks around these facilities. Granted, it might be tough to get to them, but at least we got defensible space around our facilities. So I'm very happy to report that.
Was it a brand new fire break or was
pretty
it
much
retilling of an old one?
If there was an old one, it wasn't very evident. It was brushed as tall as you that you couldn't walk through.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. So yeah, well, that's good. No, thank you for being proactive. I mean, anything helps in a fire emergency. Thank you.
Yeah, and the PUC staff's been very, very helpful. It's who you talk to over there. We also potholed the San Vicente pipeline for the design with the engineer. Flushed 37 blow-offs, replaced a couple hydrants, did our filter surveillance at Denniston and Nunes. No significant problems there. The Denniston wash water recovery pump and motor was replaced. We're going to take the old pump and see if we can rebuild it and have it as a spare. Pulled the Denniston well 9 pump and videoed the casing. We're likely going to need a new pump there. Casing looks pretty good. We're probably going to scrub it anyways. It's good, cheap water. Did some Denniston miscellaneous maintenance projects, some painting and some filter aid feed lines. August sources, Pillarcitos from Crystal Springs. So the outstanding staff here at Coastside figured out that they could blend with the new pipeline with Crystal Springs. We were doing 1,100 pretty steady from the Pillarcitos pipeline and making up the difference with Crystal Springs. We tested that for a couple of weeks. It was pretty stable. There's ways to improve it, but we've proven that we can do that. And we decided once we got the numbers from the PUC about what's left in Pillarcitos till the end of the year, there's 130 acre feet. Staff agrees that that's a good bank account to tap into in case we do have a full blown disaster in the fall PSPS events. To projects, sewer lateral at the Main Street shop was replaced. We only had to go out to just the edge of the sidewalk. The rest was VCP, I'm happy to say. So it was a lot cheaper than we thought. There are dive inspections of these following tanks as required by DDW. We have to clean and inspect every 5 years. That was Half Moon Bay 2 and 3. I left 3 off there, EG1, Miramar, Cahill. And we did find quite a bit of sediment in Cahill and we'll look at the frequency that we're going to do that with. We've in the past done it in-house by draining it, taking out of service, and squeegeeing it out. Since we had a dive team here, it was way easier to have them do it and a lot safer and less impact on staff. Denniston Tank Road Culvert Replacement Project is moving along. The Denniston generators are set at the booster station and also at the water treatment plant. The electricians are working on wiring those up. We're hoping to do start up in a couple of weeks here. Emergency dam approved, as you guys know. HDR just submitted their 60% design for the Nunes Filter Improvement Project. Staff's taking a look at it. We just got that end of last week. And EKI has been helping us with a little bit of the Denniston Tank Road project. And also they have completed the Grandview plans and specs. Those are complete, and we will figure out when we want to do that in the next couple of years. That design's ready to go. Pine Willow Oak is near completion, and the Pillarcitos Crossing was 90% designs expected later this month, and we won't go to 100 until the CEQA document is prepared and finished. And that's a mouthful. If you got any questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Other than the level of effort and the continued movement on all of the programs and projects by the team there has been very impressive to me during this particularly difficult situation in terms of all the opportunities that are being faced, both from the pandemic and from the fires. I understood one of the things that our team jumped into, at least Mary alerted me to this, I'm not sure what level it was done, but some of our folks were able to help with animal rescue and animal movement during the fires down in that area. And I thought that was well beyond what I knew was the scope of their responsibility, but I'm really impressed that people put themselves out to try and help their community, etc. So I just wanted to bring that up. It wasn't on the list of reportable items I noticed. So thank you.
That was after hours.
Huh?
Mary and I were very considerate about their need to help their neighbors. Sean, Dustin really helped a lot of people. It was nice to see. They really cared.
No, that was great. I appreciate. No, that's just what makes you feel good about the team here.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging a very busy and eventful month. Thank you. So moving on to our last item, Director, agenda items, request for future board meetings, and/or adjournment. Jim, I see that finger raised.
I'd like to suggest 2 future agenda items. And one of them, the first one, I need to tell a little story. I got a phone call from a neighbor who's adding an auxiliary unit onto his property. And the issue was that he wanted to connect to the street main twice instead of one time. And it didn't seem unreasonable because he wasn't going to increase the amount of water he was going to be using. It was still within the design rules for the sizing of the connection that he has. And so he was, of course, pretty angry when he was told by the district that he could only have one connection. Because it would mean that he would have to run a pipe at a much greater expense. So I could understand what he was complaining about, and I could also understand why we couldn't connect him twice, because apparently the way the connections are counted today, that's what Mary was very nice to try to explain to me how sizing rules and the connection count has changed over time. But it seems to me that it has changed over time, and it's a little bit arbitrary. So I wonder if in the future, I remember when I first got on the board 20 years ago, there was a plumbing code that said if you had this many faucets in your house, that's determined how big your connection was going to be. Now apparently that's changed. And it's probably reasonable that it should change. But the point is that it's changed to something which is not easily explained. And so we're going to continue to get angry calls from people saying, I don't understand why I can't have it the way I want it. And your explanation doesn't seem to make sense to me. So I wonder if it's at some point in the future, we could have an agenda item where we discuss how should we decide what is a connection, what size should it be, and what the rules could be so that they could be placed on our website so that they would be very concrete and easily understood. So that's the first item I would like to propose as a future agenda item. And then the second one, and I gave Mary a PDF document to be passed around to everyone. And I don't know exactly what the rules are to be passed around next time, or maybe this time, or whatever the rules are to make it open and public. But we are in a really unique economic situation. Right now, interest rates are at a unprecedented low. I don't think they've ever been this low in my lifetime, quite frankly. I think they were this low in the 1930s, but now they're, and I was around in the 40s, as some other members of this board were as well. Interest rates now are extremely low. But what isn't low is the inflation rate for construction. And in the Bay Area, that's been historically raising year by year by almost 6%. So we have an opportunity here if we were to package a large set of projects in our capital improvement plan and do a short-term loan. And what I mean by a short-term loan is a loan that might extend over 5 years or 10 years, but not 30 years or 40 years. We could actually save money by arbitraging the difference in the interest rate, which is very low right now, and the inflation rate for construction, which is very high. And and I did an analysis which is on this PDF, so anybody can look at it and see it. But if there's as much as a 0.5% difference in those two rates, where inflation is greater than the interest rate by 0.5%, we can actually save money over a period of time, and it all scales. And so you have to decide how much do you need to borrow and how soon do you want to pay it back. But we could save as much, for example, if we're looking at over the next 10 years, $45 million in capital improvements. And some of that is on our storage systems, for example. Well, we had an analysis 2 months ago by an engineer that analyzed our storage tanks, and we discovered, as I think the operators probably already knew, that some of those tanks are not doing very much except holding water in the case of an emergency. If we move them to a different location, we might actually get more service out of those tanks. So we could consider a rather major project on storage that might cost us a considerable more money than we're considering right now, because the plan right now is to fix these tanks sort of one by one each year for a number of years out into the future. Well, that means that the current cost to fix a tank today, but the future cost will be much higher by inflation. So that's the difference that we can arbitrage simply by planning and borrowing. So I have a document that I've headed to Mary and asked her to distribute it to everyone that explains how this works in case anyone hasn't thought about it. But it's sort of like if somebody would lend you $1,000 at 1% and you could invest it and get 5%, of course you'd want to do that because you would make 4% on the difference. So that's the opportunity we have here. It's a unique opportunity in the economic history of the country. But from what Chairman Powell did at the Fed, is it looks like that these rates are going to continue to be low for probably another 5 years or maybe even another decade. So we should take advantage of this opportunity because it won't be here forever. And we could save money, and it's significant amounts of money, as you'll see in this document. It could be millions of dollars, literally. So I'd like to agendize this as a change in the way we think about our CIP program, aggregating large projects that we do long-term simply to save this money. It means more planning and putting more things together in a single package that we put out for bid, and we start all of those projects at once.
So you said the construction inflation rate is 6% a year. is that what's considered a constant?
The city of San Francisco has a department that does nothing but look at that, and they're on the.
So that would
web.
be considered a constant for the next 5 years, 5 to 10 years?
Well, it's going to have some kind of an average over time, right? So you can look, I mean, obviously it's going to vary a little every single year, but it doesn't, I mean, it's just a matter of the math, how you want to calculate it. But it's going to average out over some time to be a certain percentage. Well,
It sounds about right.
in the recent past, it's been around 5.5 to 6%. And that's an average over a decade. So that's a pretty good guess for what it's going to be in the future.
The key word was guess. Thank you. Okay,
If we
so
don't, we're going to pass those costs on to our customers as a rate increase. So
thank you.
there's always, whose risk do you want to take? Do you want to make our customers pay more, or do we want to save them money?
Well, you're arguing over what you see in a crystal ball. Thank you. Anyone else? If not,
And Mary, Mary, you're going to send out the memo?
Yes, I'll Patrick, I just was going to check in with Patrick.
Yeah, Director Larimer wants his memo to go to the board, and it's appropriate that it go to the board. It will become a public document because we've talked about it at a public meeting. So it should be available to the public as well.
That's fine.
thank you. Okay,
All right.
the number 9, adjournment.
Let's do it.
Thank you all.
I make a motion.
Oh, a little after 8. Thank you all. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Take care.
Thanks.
Yeah, no kidding. Take care.
Bye, good night.
Good night.
Bye. Bye.